Hello, I'm Stephen Chapman. Welcome to this week's This Is MediaCity podcast. And today I'm joined bright and early by Chris Hawkins from Radio 6 Music. Now, you'll know him obviously from his BBC radio shows, but also from podcasting, presenting all sorts of things that he's doing. And we'll be talking about how he got into the industry, a bit about music, and somehow I will squeeze in one of my two Smith's food-related stories. So please remember to like, subscribe, comment and share. Here's Chris. Chris, welcome to This Is MediaCity. You've just come back from a show. We'll try and keep you awake as you go along. Is that all right?
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm going to get your brain working first of all, though, I'm afraid, because we're going to start with an icebreaker, which are questions that could be pretty much anything that we've thought up of, just so that we might get a little bit to know about you before we kick off in the real thing.
All right. Okay, that one.
Go for it.
Biggest music inspiration? Probably, I'm going to say David Byrne and Talking Heads. They're one of my favourite bands, and they were always so innovative, so creative, so different to anything else when they started out, and I think made groundbreaking music.
Is that the one that you always go back to? Is that sometimes when you get like music, almost music deafness, isn't it? Like you've listened to so much.
Yeah.
You just want to get inspiration again.
Yeah, I think Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads is one of my go-to songs when I want to pick up. I think it's one of my favourite songs of all time. So So it's that inspirational sound of Talking Heads.
Fab. I'll give you one more.
All right.
Go for it.
Favourite music track? Well,
let's
just
get rid
answered
of that one. If it's favourite band, we're in trouble.
It's biggest inspiration.
Is it?
May have covered that.
I don't know.
What's the last music you listened to? So
you just come off the radio, haven't you?
Yeah. So I've just come off the radio and typically can't remember what the last song I played was. It was The Doors' Break On Through.
Oh, that's not bad end to a show.
A classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Let's get those cards out of the way and talk about stuff, because I think people will know you from various bits of work you're doing, podcaster, presenter. But let's start with Six Music. How was that? How did you get into Six Music to start with? Because you've been there a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been at Six Music since the station started. I worked when I was a kid. I just wanted to work in radio. I was fascinated by the one-to-one nature of radio as a medium and how I felt like presenters were talking to me, and I found that magical. And from a very young age, that's all I wanted to do. I was into radio, music and football. And I'm not a great footballer. I'm not a great musician, but I seem to have made a career out of working in radio. And at first worked at my local radio station, which was BBC Radio Shropshire. I did work experience there and never left, and moved on to Nottingham, to BBC Radio Nottingham. Whilst I was at university, I was doing the drive time show on Radio Nottingham while I was at university in my third year.
You presenting or working or
Presenting, yeah.
Oh, brilliant!
And even had to leave some of my final exams early to get to do the show, to do drive time on Radio Nottingham, and then moved to London and worked at GLR, this incredible BBC station for London, where some of my heroes were presenters, people like Danny Baker, people like Chris Evans, Chris Morris, Emma Freud, and Nick Abbott, all of these amazing presenters who I still hold, obviously, in such high esteem. They were all there, and that's the station that I wanted to work at. I got a job there, and then whilst I was there, Six Music started, and I moved over right at the beginning.
So when you were working as a student undergraduate at radio, were you studying media at the time, or was it a completely different degree?
No, when I was at Radio Shropshire, I was looking at, so I was a kid, I guess I was maybe in the sixth form at school, and I was looking at where to go to university. that had a really good radio station, and BBC Radio Nottingham had a great reputation. So I wanted to go to Nottingham, which was also a really great university. But I thought that if I was going to be working in radio, I should do a course in something different. And I chose American Studies, which was not the most challenging of courses.
It would be now, I imagine.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, but at the time, it was pretty straightforward and allowed me to work as planned at Radio Nottingham whilst I was a student.
So I suppose, because I didn't do media as I did languages,
Right.
which was challenging. And I left one of my exams because I wanted to go to BBC Radio Manchester. I don't know if that's good technical advice for anyone watching or listening to. But it does kind of show how important the experience is over necessarily the academic qualification sometimes, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure that there is a qualification to work in radio as such, but I think learning as much about the medium is, of course, invaluable. But for me, I was able to do that on the job. It's, I think, harder to do that now. For one, there are less radio stations.
Given the people you've been, I suppose, influenced by down at GLR, how much do they feed into your shows and things now? Because some of those, their inserts and things like that, they're just phenomenal, like Danny Baker stuff and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose you are, at this point in my career, you are the sum of parts that you've gathered through the years. So Danny Baker, brilliant at interacting with his audience. That's something that I love to do. Chris Evans, the pace, the energy. Someone like Nick Abbott, the thoughtfulness, the humour. So yeah, there have been lots of influences on me through my career, and hopefully I've carved my own path too.
Because on your shows as well, you've got the amazing game. I'm the names in songs. How did that come about? Because it's basically, I don't think you hear the song first, do you? It's people say they've heard a name of someone they know.
Correct.
In the lyrics of a song, and then your team play you the song, and you go,
yeah. So it's become an extraordinary phenomenon, I'm going to say. It's taken on a life of its own, and it's what people say to me most. They'll stop me and say, love names in songs. Not necessarily a new band that I've introduced them to. It's nearly always love names in songs. It started by accident. Someone got in touch, a listener, saying that they thought they'd heard their name in a song. And from that moment on, it escalated to the point now where it's, as I say, it's gone huge.
Has anyone heard your name in a song? And which one?
They haven't yet. But I think there are people that hear their name, so it's first and second name is the ideal. That's the dream.
Yeah, because hearing Chris or Stephen in a song, that's
exactly.
Easy.
And what's confusing for anyone that hasn't heard it is it has to be. It sounds like their name. It's not an actual name in a song.
Yeah, because it's even more silly when you hear it that way. That's what makes it. Yeah, it's not like, oh yeah, that says Dave Smith. Yeah, that's not that.
No, it's not real names. It's where you think you hear your name or a family member's name or a mate's name in a song.
And has this kind of, because it's features like that, and with the social media and everything else with Six Music and stuff, does that bring your audience closer than even back when you were starting?
Yeah, I mean, Six Music is a family, and that goes for us that work making the radio and extends, of course, to the audience. It's a very tight family of hosts, producers and listeners. And I think that, Six Music is very much driven by our listeners who are passionate about music. The music that we play is always front and centre of every single show on Six Music. It's what I love most about my job, is playing classic songs, great songs that don't get played elsewhere, and breaking new music too.
How much freedom do you have? Because sometimes radio stations, you know, there's an A list, there's a B list, there's a C list. Six Music, it switches. I mean, Craig Charles, I think, played Sonic Boom 6, amazing Manchester band. That I would thought, nobody's playing this. It must be, I've switched to my own music here. But they're coming up with, how much kind of control or how much influence do you have on what goes on?
A huge amount. It's the greatest privilege, I think, to be able to play the music that we personally love on a daily basis. It's an extraordinary, unique, I think, proposition really for radio. Very few radio stations allow, especially national radio stations, allow presenters and producers to put their own shows together, and that is the most part of my day is spent choosing the music and working out what will sound best.
And the irony probably is it's bigger than ever, because it had the moment where everybody thought Six Music's going. It was going to be closed down at one point, and then suddenly it's kind of revived. And I think look at the radars, it's gone massive, hasn't it? Yeah,
the station just keeps on growing. It's a great radio station. It's an amazing radio station for anyone that loves music and is into the idea of discovering new music. Now that is great. I love that. Is the awesome part of the job is finding new bands and playing them for the first time and seeing the reaction. But it's also great to play something old by Tom Waits maybe that no one's heard before, and you get that same reaction from someone who says, I didn't even know who Tom Waits was, and they go down the Tom Waits rabbit hole as a result. That's an equally exciting part of the job, is playing old songs that people might not have heard before.
That excitement as well of discovering something and going, I want to play this now. Yeah. And the other thing, and the reason we're speaking to you, is Six Music has quite a presence here at Media City, doesn't it?
Of course. Yeah.
I think I'm trying to work out. Craig's based here. You're based.
The station
here.
Is based here.
The station's based here. But a lot of presenter-wise, you got based here as well, haven't you?
Yeah. More than half the station is presented from Media City,
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's nice to does it kind of give? Do you feel the vibe of the station has changed?
I've been here for more than 10 years, and more shows are now presented from Salford than ever before. The vibe has always been very cool. It's always been great. Everyone works hard on delivering what we love, and that is the best music on the radio.
You've just had the Six Music Festival as well.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's always fantastic. It's a great way of showcasing artists, and also getting among the listeners to the station. And we're all very similar. So it's a fantastic 3 nights, always.
It's one of my favourite festivals when you can go to bed in your own bed at the end of the night. That might be controversial because you've got a bunch of festivals coming up, I imagine. Because outside of Six Music, let's move on, because you've got a massive career outside of music, outside of Six Music. I'm assuming you're going to be DJing at festivals, are you, and things like that coming up? Is this a busy schedule for you now? It
is, yeah. I've got a lot of festivals this summer. They started back in January at a festival called Rockaway Beach, a brilliant festival at Butlins in Bognor Regis on the south coast. It is awesome, and that again is a festival where you don't get muddy because it's all at indoor venues, and there's no camping involved either.
Magic.
So it's a pretty great setup. So Rockaway Beach was my first, on the very first weekend of January. I was DJing at that festival and hosting In Conversations, Q&As with some of the artists who were playing. My next one is Bearded Theory in Derbyshire, which I'm very excited by. Iggy Pop, Six Music DJ Iggy Pop, is headlining that festival. I'll be there DJing on the Thursday night, and I'm hosting one of the stages on the Friday. Other festivals this summer: Candle Calling, not too far from here. Camp Festival. Others,
so probably a website with them all on.
Yes, somewhere.
What do we expect from a DJ set from you? Is it like your show? Is it a bit more?
Yeah, it's representative of me and what I love to play. It's a big old indie disco, I would say broadly.
But you also, amongst all of this, you've got a couple of podcasts. One of them, I think, is it the number one music podcast?
I have a podcast called How to DJ, which is a chance for me to sit down with radio DJs and club DJs, and I've been lucky enough
and get tips for your DJing gigs.
Well, yeah, kind of.
Have they improved?
Maybe not. It's an opportunity to find out about the lives of great DJs. DJs that I hold in incredibly high esteem. So as I say, both radio and club DJs, and some of the biggest DJs in the world have come on the podcast. It's been amazing.
And that's obviously on all good podcast platforms, but it's done extremely well. Were you expecting it to go so well?
I think podcasts take a while to grow. So it hit the ground running right at the start, maybe 2 and a bit years ago. And now we're regularly number one in all music in the UK. Yeah, so it's cool.
You do a lot of interviews with that. I'll come on to the Q&A bit in a minute, but you do a lot of interviews with that. You do a lot of interviews for Six Music as well. Is there a favourite person you've interviewed so far?
I'm naturally curious, so I love sitting down and getting into the minds of the guests that I'm speaking to. So whether that be on the podcast or on the radio or in person. There was a week not too long ago where I was so lucky. I interviewed Johnny Marr on the Thursday afternoon on Six Music, Johnny Marr from the Smiths. Then that evening I was hosting an hour-long In Conversation at a great venue, the Brudenell in Leeds, with Matt Berninger from the National. And then the next night I was hosting an In Conversation evening with Tim Burgess from the Charlatans. So 3 iconic musicians, 3 iconic names, and to find out about the way that their minds work and how they've become so successful is fascinating.
Johnny Marr just oozes cool, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We did a show with him once, and he came in the edit suite because he just wanted to make sure it looked okay.
Yeah.
Which was fine, and they suddenly gave us the best edit suite, and suddenly all this catering and stuff appeared from nowhere. And Johnny walked in, and he got out this big plastic bag full of what looked like dried things inside, and all the executives looked at us and went, "What's going on? We're gonna have what? Tell him." And I said, "Do you mind if I make my own tea?" And he got white tea, but he imported this special tea, and all these people come, "Oh my goodness." Basically, it leads me to my Johnny Marr made me a cup of tea story. But
yeah. I love those kind of stories.
But these guys are so. Is it the fact that you get so many different people that you can get into the minds of that intrigues you when you're doing the interviews, or is the one that you're really trying to build to get hold of?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm very lucky that I get to speak to people I'm interested in and hold in incredibly high esteem. So someone like Johnny is, maybe the UK's greatest guitarist. So to find out what drives him, what's made him so successful, and how he's maintained that success through 40 years at the top of his game.
And kept evolving as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, and the same is true for Tim Burgess. Again, someone that I feel very lucky to be able to call a friend now. And 10 years down the line, we just sat down and did a series of big interviews over three nights. And I feel like the 10 years that I've known Tim, that it was the culmination of that friendship and relationship, was being able to sit down and explore all of his life's been amazing. What you find, I think, is that each of these artists, that those at the very top, they've worked incredibly hard. There's no shortcut. They've all worked really hard. Yes, there's a natural gift very often, but a lot of it is hard work and persistence, and they tend to have an aura as well. The names that I've mentioned, that you feel something special when you're around them.
And it's amazing how much support they give back as well. I don't think you necessarily see. I mean, Tim, during COVID, his listen along parties became a phenomenon, didn't they? And Johnny obviously supporting new acts with his guitar playing too.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you've you kind of would love to sit down and have that interview with?
I feel so lucky that I have been able to interview so many artists that I love who haven't. I've never interviewed David Byrne from Talking Heads, who I mentioned right at the start. So to explore his life with him would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Would that be a meeting your hero moment?
Yeah, I guess. I don't get nervous about interviewing musicians particularly. I'm just fascinated by them. So I tend to talk to anyone that I'm interviewing as if I'm in the pub with them and ask them the questions that I might ask you if I were interviewing you.
How was my last number one? One of the interesting interview techniques I think you have that I've kind of noticed is you're not putting words into their mouths so much. You're very. Is that a deliberate? The danger, I suppose, of being a music fan or like a film fan is that you try and show off how much you know about the person you're sitting next to.
That's really astute of you to say that, because that is something that I'm very aware of. That's really interesting that you noticed that. It's a real pet hate. I find it really frustrating to listen to that person that might be doing the interview trying to demonstrate that
G chord you played on the second album.
Exactly. They know that already. In 1999, you said, and then quoting them back at themselves and then saying, what do you think? Well, you know what they think because they said it. You've just read the quote. So I tend to, as I say, genuinely try and have a conversation. I don't even like the word interview.
Yeah, I think we had Wise Elf Films on here the other day who were talking about Bruce Springsteen because they're doing a documentary for him for BBC Two, and it was very much they were saying, well, the technique is you forget if both of you have forgotten that there's an interview taking place, then everybody can relax because you know you've done it right. He was covering his board at the time, feeling very.
I think also letting your guests speak, I think that's absolutely crucial. You need to let them breathe, and often they'll say something after a moment's pause, and as long as you don't cut in, they'll continue to talk, and they may well, and often do then, say something that you weren't expecting because they've had just that extra time, that extra second.
That was a technique I was taught, was that the silence always gets filled, and it's making sure the interviewee fills the silence because that's usually your exclusive that comes out with that little bit of that little tiny pause, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, I was, as I said, I did a degree in American Studies, which didn't really qualify me for interviewing bands, but I just think it's common sense and good manners to let someone talk. If you've invited them to be your guest, make sure you know who you're talking to, you know plenty about them. I do a lot of research, heavy research for every guest that I'm talking to, so that if the conversation goes in any particular direction, I always know the subject.
And speaking of which, I suppose one of your other projects is the Q&A sides?
Yeah.
Because that's questions, answers, and a single band, isn't it?
And acoustic performance. So it's been a huge success, Q&A sides.
And where is that a thing that's out and about in venues and things like that?
Correct. Yeah. I've just done 3 nights with Everything with John and Alex from that band. And we were in Coventry, Shrewsbury and Lancaster at the end of last week. And it's me sitting down with them, all sold out shows, asking them about their lives and going right back to the beginning, to their early loves and how they established themselves as a band, got signed. And in the case of Everything, 5 consecutive top 10 albums. And it's a real getting to know that artist or band experience. So Pete Doherty tells extraordinary stories about his life, which has been well documented, but there's always more to tell. I've done a number of nights with Peter, and every time there's new stories. Damon Gough, Badly Drawn Boy, is another beautiful storyteller. And there are great moments where after some conversation, Damon will then just start playing either guitar or go to the piano and perform. So the Q&A side is a mix of in conversation and acoustic performance.
And you've got a few coming up as well, haven't you?
Yeah, lots.
Go on. Have you got any names you can tell us or remember?
Luke Una. So that's a slightly different twist. Luke Unabomber from...
Because he can't be that acoustic, can he?
No, but he's kind of he's gonna, where artists often will play acoustically, he's gonna illustrate his conversation with bits of music that tell the story of his life. That's at Manchester Arena. Who else? Stuart Murdoch from Bell and Sebastian, another
Stuart
artist.
Murdoch intrigues me so much because he's got such a life story.
Amazing life story. And again, I can't wait just to sit down. The conversation just flows. And with someone like Stuart, so much to say.
It could be a 3-4 hour piece, that one, couldn't it? So he's a boxer or something, wasn't he, originally? And he's got all sorts.
I'm curious to know, because Stuart has always suffered from ME, and
he's got a book about it as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I'm intrigued to know how he's maintained his life on stage with all that he has to deal with in the background.
I'm intrigued how they've changed as well, because they were like a fey indie kind of the thing that you had to be a certain type of person to listen to their first album, I think. Yeah. And now they're kind of this pop monster almost, some of their songs recently. It's an incredible journey they've been on too.
And really influential.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Great band. And there are others too.
And we could, if you Google those and things like that, you can just kind of look and find out and stuff like that.
Yeah, they move around the country, so at different venues all over the UK.
So what's next for you, apart from sleep?
Always a desperation for sleep. I hope to just keep doing more of the same. I love doing the show every single day. Everything is about the show every day. I love it. I love every second of doing the radio, and I feel so lucky to be on the greatest radio station in the world, and I really believe that. And I love being at Media City to do that. I think we have the best studio at the BBC because we get to look out. We have a proper window and we look out on the piazza. So it's lovely to be, for me in the morning as the day is starting, to actually be able to see the day starting in the way that listeners are waking up and starting their day. Often studios don't have windows. The atmosphere at Media City, as you well know, is superb. It's great. On a sunny day in particular, it's a brilliant place to work.
How do you cope when you've got to do your morning show, but you also, as part of your job, you have to go out and do these late night things as well around the country? How do you do it?
I don't have to do anything beyond the show.
But you want to do it.
Yeah, of course, because who wouldn't want to spend evenings with your favourite pop stars? So you cope by being excited at the prospect of any of the above, really, from those Q&A side nights to DJing at festivals. It's all possible. It's tough sometimes, and I do take sort of a fairly regular holiday. but I love it, and I can't believe I get to do this for a job.
And the final question, because a lot of people probably email you every day this question, and lots of listeners and viewers will say the same. How on earth do someone like them get into the position you're in? How do you become a radio presenter, a music presenter? Is it graft purely? I
mean, there is definitely no one way to do it. I think that trying to establish what it is that you want to do, what bit of it that you want to do. So for radio, try and be clear about what you want to do and where you want to do it. And then knock on doors and keep knocking. Be prepared to volunteer. Be prepared to work for a long time, perhaps doing something that you don't necessarily love at first, but as long as you've got your end goal in mind, then I think it's achievable.
A lot can be said from what you said right at the start, the fact you didn't walk into Six Music and start.
No.
You started through the local radio route, and it kind of moved up, and you get your inspiration from people who from there to get to the where you are, that you don't necessarily think, right, I want to work at Six Music, I want to work at 5 Live, I want to work at ITV, I'm going to go straight for them straight away.
Yeah, there's no direct path, obviously, between BBC Radio Shropshire and BBC Radio 6 Music.
There is now.
But it wasn't a direct path at all. It's about learning your craft and being the best version of yourself, whatever you're doing, and chasing that prize.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you for coming on this, particularly after you've done your show this morning, and it's still early. But we're going to let you go off to sleep, listen to new music. One of the podcasts, prepare. What are you doing next?
So I do spend most of the day listening to music. I get sent, as we all do at Six Music, maybe 100, 150 new songs every single week. And I feel like what a brilliant job. It's an amazing job to have to listen through that music and try and pick out what's best for the show.
Do they arrive digitally now?
Yes.
I used to love the Jiffy bag in the morning. Yeah. There was something about getting the promo CD or vinyl, wasn't there?
Yeah. There is more vinyl than there was. There is sometimes vinyl too, but for the most part, it lands digitally, and the mission is to sort out what's best.
Fab. Well, we will let you get on with that. And thank you ever so much for coming on This Is Media City. This Is Media City is a 39 Pictures production on behalf of Media City and in partnership with the University of Salford, and all the talented team behind the cameras are graduates and undergraduates from the university. Don't forget, you can go back into the archive and listen to some of the brilliant people who've already been sitting on the couch, from Lucy Meacock and Peter Salmon to some of the tech and amazing people that are working at Media City. And we'll see you next Friday. The production team are Meg Bond, Tegan Easton, Akila Hewitt and James Young.